Have you ever asked, Lord, why do you let me suffer like this? You pray, you obey, you wait, yet the pain does not leave. This morning prayer will help you understand what God may be doing in your suffering and how to remain faithful while you wait. You wake up with the same question sitting heavy on your chest. Lord, why do you let me suffer like this? You do not ask it with anger. You ask it with tired eyes. You ask it with a faithful heart that is worn down. You ask it because you are still praying, even though the answers feel slow. Many people believe that if they obey God, life will immediately become easier. They think faith is a shield that blocks pain. They think obedience is a contract that guarantees comfort. But that belief quietly breaks the heart when suffering comes anyway. Because suffering does come, even to those who pray, even to those who obey, even to those who love God sincerely. The truth is this: faith does not remove hardship. Faith gives hardship meaning. Obedience does not cancel pain. Obedience shapes you through pain. Ask yourself gently, if God only worked through ease, how would your heart learn depth? If every prayer ended with instant relief, how would trust grow strong? If obedience always produced comfort, how would endurance be formed? You are not suffering because God has abandoned you. You are not suffering because your faith is weak. You are not suffering because you fail to pray enough. Sometimes you suffer because God is doing a deeper work than comfort could ever accomplish. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It does not see the sun at first. It does not feel light or warmth. It feels pressure. It feels darkness. It feels confined. If the seed could speak, it might cry out, "Why am I hidden like this? Why am I covered? Why am I pressed down?" But the soil is not punishment. The soil is preparation. What looks like burial is often planting. What feels like silence is often protection. What seems like delay is often alignment. You are not being crushed. You are being rooted. Growth begins where visibility ends. Strength begins where comfort stops. Depth begins where answers are delayed. God often works in ways that are hidden because he is building something that must last. Surface growth fades quickly. Deep roots endure storms. Ask yourself again, would you rather grow fast or grow strong? Would you rather feel relief now or be prepared for what is ahead? There is a spiritual law that governs timing. God prepares the person before releasing the promise. He prepares the heart before changing the circumstance. He prepares the inside before transforming the outside. If he rushed the answer before preparing you, the answer itself could harm you. If he removed the pressure before building endurance, you would not be able to stand later. If he opened the door before shaping your character, the door would lead to collapse. Preparation always feels slower than expectation, but preparation is mercy. You may be praying for release. God may be working on alignment. You may be asking for escape. God may be teaching you how to endure with faith. Not your will, but his will. Not your timing, but his timing. Not your comfort, but his purpose. Pressure reveals what is already inside the heart. When life is calm, faith feels easy. When pressure comes, truth surfaces. There are people who praise when blessings flow, but complain when obedience costs something. And there are people who remain faithful when nothing makes sense. Think of a believer who loses a job and still wakes up early to pray. No applause, no certainty, just quiet obedience. That kind of faith is forged under pressure. Think of a parent who keeps trusting God while watching a child struggle. No instant answers, no clear explanations. Just steady prayer and surrendered tears. That kind of faith is not learned in comfort. Pressure does not destroy faith. It reveals whether faith is rooted in God or in outcomes. Ask yourself honestly, do you trust God only when the road is smooth? Or do you trust him even when you cannot see the next step? Focused obedience is sacred stewardship. Distraction weakens spiritual clarity. When suffering comes, the temptation is to look everywhere for relief, but obedience calls you to look upward and inward. Focus does not mean ignoring pain. Focus means choosing faith over noise. Every day you choose what to give your attention to. Fear will ask for your focus. Bitterness will ask for your focus. Comparison will ask for your focus. But God invites you to focus on obedience. Day by day, moment by moment, you grow by learning, then applying, then examining, then correcting, then remaining faithful. This path is slow. This path is humble. This path works. Discipline is faithfulness practiced daily. Not emotion, not motivation. Faithfulness. You pray even when you feel empty. You obey even when results are unseen. You forgive even when wounds remain tender. That is discipline. That is worship in motion. Seasons teach patience. Harvest never comes the same day seeds are planted. Time is not wasted when God is involved. Reflection refines you. Correction protects you. Humility keeps you teachable. Obedience compounds. Small faithful steps create spiritual momentum. Breakthrough is not an event. It is a daily walk with God. You may still ask, Lord, why do you let me suffer like this? And God may gently answer, because I am shaping you for what you prayed for. Stay, trust, obey, day by day. And when the weight feels heavy again, remember this. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. You are being formed in places no one else can see. In the quiet, in the waiting, in the answered prayers. When you ask the Lord why He allows this suffering, you are not weak. You are honest. And honesty, when brought before God, becomes holy ground. God is not offended by your questions. He is patient with them. He listens to the words you speak out loud and the ones you are too tired to say. He understands the sighs. He understands the silence. What often hurts the most is not the pain itself, but the confusion around it. You pray, yet the trial remains. You obey, yet the door stays closed. You stay faithful, yet the weight does not lift. This is where many people quietly abandon obedience. Not publicly, not dramatically, but slowly. They stop expecting God to work. They stop listening closely. They stop trusting deeply. But you are still here, still listening, still praying, still asking. That alone tells a story about your faith. Ask yourself something gently. If God were finished with you, would He still be pressing you? If God had abandoned you, would your heart still long for Him? If God were distant, would you still feel convicted to obey? The presence of struggle does not mean the absence of God. Often, it means His nearness is shaping you. Think again about that seed in the soil. It does not know when the rain will come. It does not know how long the darkness will last. All it can do is respond to what it has been given. Moisture, pressure, time. You cannot rush what only time and obedience can produce. God works with intention, not impulse. He does not waste pain. He does not rush growth. He does not panic when you feel behind. Preparation always aligns with calling. If the calling is heavy, the preparation must be deep. If the assignment is large, the shaping must be thorough. You may be asking for relief from the weight. God may be increasing your capacity to carry it. This is not cruelty. This is care. Pressure exposes motives. It reveals whether obedience is rooted in love or convenience. There are moments when obedience feels costly. Moments when you do the right thing and nothing improves. Moments when you choose integrity and still feel overlooked. In those moments, obedience becomes an offering. A quiet one, a costly one, a powerful one. Think of a believer who refuses to compromise even when compromise would bring quick relief. No one applauds, no one notices, but heaven records it. Think of someone who continues to forgive while wounds still ache. Not because it feels good, but because it is right. That kind of obedience reshapes the soul. Focus matters in suffering. Where your attention goes, your strength follows. If you focus only on what hurts, despair grows. If you focus on God's character, endurance grows. Focus is not denial, it is direction. You are stewarding your attention every day. You can dwell on what you lack, or you can anchor yourself in who God is, day by day, decision by decision. The path of growth is rarely dramatic. It is quiet. It is repetitive. It is faithful. You learn. You apply. You examine your heart. You correct what is misaligned. You remain faithful even when progress feels slow. This path humbles you. Because it removes shortcuts, it removes pride. It removes the illusion of control. Discipline is not punishment. It is partnership with God. You show up to pray even when your mind feels scattered. You open the scriptures even when emotions are dull. You choose obedience even when motivation is absent. That is faith expressed through discipline. Many people wait to feel strong before they obey. But strength often comes after obedience, not before. Seasons teach you this. Winter feels barren. Nothing appears to be happening, but beneath the surface, roots are deepening. Harvest requires patience. You cannot negotiate with time. You cannot rush what God has set in motion. Reflection keeps you aligned. Correction keeps you safe. Humility keeps you growing. When you pause to reflect, you notice patterns. When you accept correction, you avoid repeated pain. When you stay humble, you remain teachable. Obedience compounds quietly. One prayer leads to another. One faithful choice strengthens the next. Over time, spiritual momentum builds, not overnight, but steadily. Breakthrough is rarely sudden on the inside. It is usually the visible result of long, hidden faithfulness. You may think nothing is changing, but something is forming. Your patience is deepening. Your discernment is sharpening. Your dependence on God is increasing. This is not wasted time. Ask yourself again, if God removed this struggle today, would you be ready for what comes next? God sees the full path. You only see this step. Not your will, but His will. Not your pace, but His pace. When the question rises again, Lord, why do you let me suffer like this? Remember this. Suffering does not define your worth. Suffering does not cancel God's promises. Suffering does not mean God is silent. Sometimes God answers prayers by changing circumstances. Sometimes He answers by changing you. Both are answers. Stay faithful in the small things. Stay obedient in the quiet moments. Stay patient in the waiting. Day by day, there will come a time when you look back and see how this season shaped you. You may not thank God for the pain, but you will recognize the growth. Until then, walk with Him today, not tomorrow, not years ahead, today. One prayer, one act of obedience, one surrendered moment. And when your strength feels thin, remember this. God's work in you is not finished. He is still shaping, still refining, still preparing. And He walks with you through every step of it. Even now, as you listen, something within you is being steadied, not because the pain has vanished, but because truth is settling your heart. Suffering often feels lonely, even when you are surrounded by people. Others may not understand why you keep trusting. They may wonder why you still pray. They may suggest easier paths. But obedience is not chosen by consensus. It is chosen by conviction. Ask yourself quietly, who am I listening to in this season? The noise of fear, or the voice of God calling me to remain faithful? God often asks you to stay when everything in you wants to run. Not to trap you, but to mature you. Running can bring temporary relief. Staying brings transformation. Think of how patience is formed. It is not taught in moments of speed. It is learned in moments of delay. You learn patience when prayers stretch longer than expected, when answers arrive slower than hoped, when progress feels invisible. And yet patience is not passive. It is active trust. You wake up and choose faith again. You speak truth to your own heart. You resist bitterness. You refuse despair. Day by day, pressure continues to reveal the heart. Not to shame you, but to show you where healing is still needed. Sometimes suffering exposes hidden fears. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of never changing. Fear of disappointment. God does not expose these fears to harm you. He exposes them to free you. What you bring into the light loses its power to control you. This is why reflection matters. When you reflect, you notice what suffering is stirring inside you. When you examine your heart, you learn where trust is shallow and where it is strong. Correction follows reflection, not harsh correction, loving redirection. God adjusts your thinking. He realigns your expectations. He gently replaces false beliefs with enduring truth. Many people believe suffering means something is wrong. But often, suffering means something important is happening. Think about how metal is refined. Heat is applied not to destroy but to purify. Impurities rise to the surface. What remains becomes stronger. Your life is being refined. You may not like the heat, but the heat is not random. Focus again becomes crucial here. If you focus only on the discomfort, you will miss the purpose. If you focus on God's presence, you will find strength to endure. Focus is an act of worship. It says, God, I choose you over my fear. Distraction, on the other hand, weakens faith. It pulls your attention toward comparison, toward resentment, toward impatience. You are called to steward your focus carefully. When suffering lingers, discipline sustains you, not feelings, not inspiration. Discipline. You pray because it is right. You read scripture because it anchors you. You obey because God is faithful, even when circumstances are not. This is how spiritual momentum builds. One obedient step strengthens the next. One surrendered day prepares you for tomorrow. Compounding obedience is slow, but it is powerful. You may not notice the change week to week, but over time, the difference becomes undeniable. Your reactions change. Your patience increases. Your trust deepens. You begin to respond rather than react. You begin to wait rather than panic. This is growth. Ask yourself again, am I measuring my life by outcomes or by faithfulness? Outcomes change. Faithfulness endures. Breakthrough is often misunderstood. Many think it arrives suddenly, like a dramatic moment. But most breakthroughs are built quietly. They are formed through daily obedience, through unseen faithfulness, through perseverance when quitting feels easier. Breakthrough is not a single door opening. It is a long walk with God that changes who you are. And sometimes the breakthrough you need most is not external. It is internal. Peace in the waiting, trust in uncertainty, hope in suffering. These are not small victories. When you ask, Lord, why do you let me suffer like this? God may be inviting you to see suffering differently, not as abandonment, but as refinement, not as punishment, but as preparation, not as delay, but as alignment. You are being aligned with a deeper faith, a quieter strength, a steadier obedience. This kind of faith does not collapse when circumstances shift. It stands, day by day. You may not feel strong, but strength is forming. You may not feel wise, but wisdom is growing. You may not feel ready, but readiness is being built. God's work is often invisible until it is complete. So remain faithful, remain obedient, remain patient, not because it is easy, but because it is holy. And when the question rises again tomorrow morning, when the weight returns, when the ache feels familiar, do not silence your heart. Bring it to God. Ask Him again. And then listen, not just for answers, but for His presence. Because even in suffering, He is near. He is nearer than you think. Not waiting at the end of your suffering, but walking with you through it. There are moments when you feel like you are praying into the air. You speak, but nothing seems to move. You wait, but nothing changes. And in those moments, the silence can feel heavier than the pain itself. But silence is not absence. Silence is often space. Space for your faith to mature. Space for your heart to be examined. Space for trust to grow without constant reassurance. Ask yourself quietly, if God explained everything right now, would you still need faith? Faith grows strongest when it is exercised without full understanding. This is why suffering becomes a classroom. Not because God enjoys watching you struggle, but because some lessons can only be learned here. You learn surrender when control is removed. You learn dependence when self-reliance fails. You learn humility when answers are delayed. These lessons are not punishment. They are preparation. You are being prepared to carry something greater than comfort. You are being prepared to walk with wisdom, patience, and compassion. People who have never suffered often speak loudly, but people who have endured speak gently. Their words carry weight. Their faith carries depth. God is shaping you into someone whose faith can support others one day, even if you do not see that yet. Pressure also clarifies priorities. What truly matters rises to the surface. What is shallow loses its grip. You begin to see what cannot sustain you. Approval cannot sustain you. Success cannot sustain you. Control cannot sustain you. Only God can. Focus again becomes sacred. You choose what you dwell on. You choose what you rehearse in your mind. If you rehearse fear, fear grows. If you rehearse truth, faith grows. This is not denial. This is discipline. You discipline your thoughts. You discipline your responses. You discipline your habits, not to earn God's love, but to stay aligned with it. Discipline is how love stays active when feelings fade. There will be days when obedience feels heavy, when doing the right thing costs more than you expected, when faith feels like work. Those days matter, because faith that only functions when it feels good is fragile. but faith that remains when it feels costly is strong. Day by day you are being trained. You learn to pray honestly, not impressively. You learn to obey quietly, not visibly. God values what is hidden. Hidden obedience builds public strength. Hidden faithfulness produces lasting fruit. Seasons continue to teach you patience. You learn that waiting is not wasted time. It is shaping time. In waiting, your desires are purified. Your expectations are adjusted. Your trust is refined. Harvest comes, but never before its time. If it came too early, it would not last. Reflection remains important here. You look back not to regret, but to understand. You ask, what is God teaching me through this? Correction follows gently. God shows you where fear still rules, where pride still resists, where trust still wavers. He does not expose these things to condemn you. He exposes them to heal you. Humility allows correction to work. When you stay humble, you keep growing. Spiritual momentum builds quietly. You may not notice it today, but one day you will respond to a situation that once overwhelmed you, and you will realize something has changed. You are steadier. You are calmer. You are more trusting. This is not accidental. This is compounded obedience. Breakthrough begins long before circumstances change. It begins when your heart changes. You stop asking only when this will end, and you begin asking who you are becoming. That shift matters. When suffering continues, you learn to anchor your hope differently, not in outcomes, but in God's character. He is faithful, even when life feels unfair. He is good, even when pain feels undeserved. Not your will, but His will. This prayer is not resignation. It is trust. You trust that God sees what you cannot. You trust that His wisdom exceeds your understanding, and trust grows slowly. It grows through repeated surrender, day by day. You may still wake up tomorrow with the same question. Lord, why do you let me suffer like this? And God may not answer with explanation. He may answer with presence, with strength to endure another day, with peace that does not depend on circumstances. That peace is not shallow. It is deep. It does not erase pain. It steadies you within it. Remain in that place. Remain with God. He is not finished. Remain with God even when you do not understand Him. This is one of the deepest acts of faith you will ever practice. Many people stay with God as long as answers come quickly, but fewer stay when questions remain open. Fewer stay when prayers feel unanswered. Fewer stay when obedience leads them into discomfort rather than relief. Yet staying is where transformation happens. Ask yourself honestly, if faith only worked when life made sense, would it really be faith? God is not asking you to pretend the pain is not real. He is asking you not to let the pain become your teacher. Pain is a signal, not a guide. God is your guide. When suffering lasts longer than expected, it can quietly reshape how you see yourself. You may start believing you are forgotten. You may start believing you are behind. You may start believing you are failing. These beliefs feel convincing because pain speaks loudly. But loud does not mean true. Truth often speaks softly. This is why you must return again and again to what God says, not what circumstances suggest. You are not forgotten. You are not late. You are not failing. You are being formed. Formation takes time. It takes repetition. It takes faithfulness when progress feels invisible. Think of a potter shaping clay. The clay is pressed, turned, reshaped. At times it may feel like it is being undone, but the potter's hands never leave it. If the clay could speak, it might say, "Why are you pressing me like this? Why are you reshaping me again? Why does this feel uncomfortable?" But the potter sees the finished vessel. The clay only feels the pressure. You are not being handled randomly. You are being shaped intentionally. God applies pressure where strength is needed. He reshapes areas that cannot carry future weight. If He left you as you are, the next season would break you. So He prepares you now. Preparation often feels like delay, but delay is not denial. There is a difference between waiting without purpose and waiting with God. Waiting with God is active. It involves prayer, obedience, reflection, and trust. Waiting without God leads to frustration. Waiting with God leads to maturity. Ask yourself gently, am I waiting with God or just waiting for relief? When you wait with God, you allow Him to work on you while you wait. This is where discipline sustains you again. You build rhythms that keep you anchored. You pray at set times. You return to Scripture regularly. You choose obedience even when emotions fluctuate. These rhythms protect you from drifting, because drifting rarely happens all at once. It happens slowly, quietly. One neglected prayer, one compromised value, one ignored conviction. Discipline guards your faith when feelings weaken. You may not feel close to God every day, but discipline keeps you near, day by day. Pressure also teaches compassion. When you suffer, you begin to see others differently. You listen more carefully. You judge less quickly. Your pain becomes a lens through which you understand others. God often uses suffering to soften hearts that would otherwise remain hard. This does not make the pain good, but it makes it meaningful. Meaning changes how you endure. You no longer suffer only for survival. You suffer with purpose. Purpose does not erase pain, but it gives you reason to remain faithful within it. Focus returns again here. You focus on becoming rather than escaping. You focus on obedience rather than outcomes. This focus is sacred. You treat your calling with care. You treat your faith as something entrusted to you. Stewardship is not glamorous. It is faithful. You steward your thoughts. You steward your time. You steward your responses, especially when suffering tempts you to let go. The growth path continues quietly. You learn through experience. You apply truth even when it is costly. You examine your heart honestly. You correct what God reveals. You remain faithful when progress feels slow. Remaining faithful is the hardest step, because it requires endurance without applause. But endurance produces depth. God is not rushed. He's precise. He's more concerned with who you are becoming than how quickly things change. This can be difficult to accept, especially when you are tired. Fatigue makes faith feel heavier. It makes patience feel thinner. This is when you must be especially gentle with your soul. Rest does not mean quitting. It means trusting God enough to pause. You rest in His presence. You rest in His promises. You rest from trying to control what only He can change. Rest is an act of faith. When you rest, you say, God, I trust you to work even when I stop striving. Striving cannot replace obedience. Control cannot replace trust. Seasons continue to teach this lesson. There is a time to act and a time to wait. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Reflection helps you discern seasons. You ask, what is God asking of me right now? Not what do I want, not what feels easiest, but what is required of me in this season. Correction keeps you aligned with that answer. Sometimes God corrects your expectations. Sometimes He corrects your pace. Sometimes He corrects your motives. Humility allows you to receive correction without resentment. When you stay humble, suffering does not harden you. It refines you. Spiritual momentum continues to build, even when you feel stuck. Momentum is not always movement. Sometimes it is stability. Standing firm when you want to run is momentum. Remaining faithful when quitting feels easier is momentum. Breakthrough is being built quietly in these moments. You may still ask why. Why this pain? Why this length? Why this silence? God may not answer the why yet, but He continues to shape the who. Who you are becoming matters. One day you will look back and see connections you cannot see now. But today you are asked only to trust and obey. Not your will, but His will. This prayer continues to anchor you. You surrender not because you understand everything, but because you trust the one who does. Remain even when remaining feels heavy. Remain when obedience feels repetitive. Remain when progress feels slow. There is a quiet courage required to stay faithful in long seasons of suffering. Not the courage that speaks loudly, but the courage that wakes up and chooses God again. This courage is formed, not found. You do not wake up one day suddenly strong. Strength is built through repeated surrender, through repeated obedience, through repeated trust, day by day. Suffering has a way of stripping life down to what is essential. It removes excess. It exposes dependency. You begin to see what you leaned on that cannot support you. Achievements cannot carry you. People cannot fully carry you. Certainty cannot carry you. Only God can. This realization is painful, but it is freeing. Because once you stop expecting temporary things to hold eternal weight, your heart finds rest. Rest does not mean the pain is gone. It means the struggle no longer defines you. Ask yourself again, What am I allowing this season to teach me? If you resist the lesson, suffering feels endless. If you receive the lesson, suffering becomes purposeful. God does not waste pain, but pain can be wasted if it hardens you instead of humbling you. Humility keeps your heart open. It keeps you teachable. When you are humble, you can say, God, I do not understand this, but I trust you to guide me through it. That prayer carries power. Pressure continues to refine your priorities. You learn what deserves your energy and what does not. You learn when to speak and when to stay silent. You learn when to act and when to wait. Wisdom grows in this way. Wisdom is not information. It is discernment shaped by experience and obedience. Many people want wisdom without suffering, but wisdom is often the fruit of endurance. This does not mean God delights in your pain. It means He redeems it. Redemption does not erase scars. It gives them meaning. Your scars may one day become evidence of God's faithfulness, not because they disappeared, but because they did not destroy you. Focus remains essential. Where you direct your attention determines the direction of your heart. If you constantly measure yourself against others, discouragement grows. If you constantly replay what went wrong, regret grows. But if you fix your focus on faithfulness, peace grows. Faithfulness is measurable daily. Did you obey today? Did you trust today? Did you remain today? These questions matter more than outcomes. Discipline supports this focus. You return to prayer even when you feel distracted. You return to Scripture even when nothing seems new. This repetition is not empty. It is formative. Just as muscles strengthen through repeated movement, faith strengthens through repeated obedience. You may feel like you are doing the same things every day, praying, waiting, trusting, but repetition builds resilience. Resilience is what allows faith to last. Seasons test resilience. Some seasons are short. Others stretch longer than expected. Long seasons reveal what quick ones cannot. They reveal whether your faith depends on change or on God. When change delays, you learn to anchor differently. This anchoring stabilizes your soul. You stop being tossed by every emotional wave. You stop reacting to every fear. You begin to stand. Standing firm is not passive. It requires effort. It requires choice. You choose to believe truth over fear. You choose to trust God over outcomes. Not your will, but His will. This surrender is renewed daily, sometimes hourly. Surrender is not something you do once. It is something you practice. Practice shapes habit. Habit shapes character. Character is what carries you into future seasons. God is shaping your character now, quietly, intentionally. He is shaping patience that will steady you later. He is shaping discernment that will protect you later. He is shaping humility that will keep you grounded later. You may not see the connection yet, but nothing here is random. Reflection helps you notice growth you might overlook. You pause and see how you respond differently than before. You notice where you no longer panic as quickly, where you pray more honestly. These are signs of growth. Correction continues gently. God shows you areas where trust can deepen, where surrender can be fuller. Correction is not rejection. It is care. When God corrects you, He is investing in you. Humility receives correction without resentment. Pride resists it and suffers longer. Remaining humble shortens unnecessary pain. Spiritual momentum keeps building beneath the surface. Even when nothing visible changes, something internal is shifting. You are becoming more rooted, more stable, more faithful. Roots grow downward before fruit appears upward. Do not despise this hidden season. Hidden seasons are often the most important. Breakthrough, when it comes, will not surprise God. It has been prepared for all along. And even then, the greatest breakthrough may not be what changes around you. It may be what has changed within you. You will trust more deeply. You will obey more readily. You will walk more humbly. These changes endure beyond any single season. When the question rises again, Lord, why do you let me suffer like this? Allow the question to lead you closer to God, not away from Him. Questions can deepen faith when they are brought to the right place. God is not intimidated by your honesty. He invites it. Speak to Him. Wait with Him. Walk with Him day by day. And remember this as you continue. You are not alone in this season. You are accompanied. The same God who allows the shaping also supplies the strength. He is faithful to finish what he has started. Remain,